Alright, I'm gonna go live. You're gonna see me here. Camera's on now. I did upload a video that was extremely long the last time I posted this. I'm still following the storm for the storm updates, and I do watch Mark, who is a live weather tracking. I don't know why that's doing that. He's a live weather updating, tracking, storm, hurricane tracking guy who's out there. If you want to check out his live chat right now and the current updates going on with Hurricane Ida, he's got a live chat right now, and his Patreon. It's called Hurricane Track. You can look that up through YouTube. That's literally all one word: HURRICANECRACK. For anybody who's concerned and worried, for those who are going to be affected and severely impacted by the upcoming Hurricane Ida, it is due to the fact that there is a high tide right now in Louisiana. I saw this just based off the news. This is going to be a serious storm with catastrophic flooding, which a lot of people don't want to hear. But when you have high tide and high gusting winds and high coastal surge already predicted on a normal level with either low tide and all that water being pushed inland, and then you're talking about high tide, it's going to be like that until late Monday afternoon from this day, from coming up, let's say a couple hours from now, say about 2 p.m. It's going this high tide is going to last all the way until the next day. So send your prayers. If you have financial aid or a way to support the folks in Louisiana, especially those who are going to be affected in the coast, send your money, reach out, help out. I can't say I myself have the funds to do this. I wish I could. I'm trying to raise awareness to help people out there because I realize that the storm has really just moved in a normal but not too slow pattern. It has quickly developed and strengthened and intensified. It is literally a mile per hour away from reaching a Category 5. Now, all these things are not good things to hear. They're bad and negative, and most people don't even think about these kinds of situations or be put in those circumstances. But there are people right now that are in those situations, and they're going to be facing this. So I say to all those who are American citizens that want to speak out, make their voices heard, bring aid and bring support. Let's not have Louisiana feeling like they were abandoned back when Hurricane Katrina hit as a Category 5 and the Bush administration, sorry to put the name out there, but from what I understood, as I said in my 40-minute length video from all the content that I had spoken about, I'd watched the Requiem videos of the documentary on the effects of Part 1 and Part 2 of when the levees broke. And that's an HBO miniseries. You can look that up or get that, I'm sure you can watch it on YouTube by now, or if you have HBO. And for those who don't, you can either stream it off YouTube or find it some way to watch and view. It is a real detrimental, deep, and involved documentary that really grips the heart and the soul and the mind of many people who would normally never have even an idea what it's like to be involved in such a severe, dangerous, and deadly storm, especially one like Katrina, which heavily impacted the city of New Orleans and thousands of miles surrounding it. Since New Orleans literally is sitting in a bowl, from what I have come to understand. So I'm just making this short clip video to raise awareness and ask people, any American citizen, anybody out there, since we don't know what's going to come of this storm other than the fact that I can guarantee you it will be catastrophic flooding. There is no doubt in my mind that this flooding is going to be record breaking. Maybe not as or equal to the same match devastation that Katrina was, how that affected, but to the level of remembering that no two hurricanes are the same, and this storm is nothing that we can expect to be anything like with what was recorded on history log books and the damages, devastation, flooding, and things that happened with Katrina, because we don't know the full outcome of what this storm's going to do. But what we can guarantee, at least myself speaking on terms of saying the term we, I can guarantee that this storm is going to be catastrophic for the people that live there and anywhere within at least 100 miles inland. And that's not exaggerating. That's just saying that water that's pushed in and water that's flooded in the length of the storm and how far this is going to go, I say the storm and coastal surge is going to affect somewhere up to at least a minimum of 17 miles inland, possibly further up to 20 miles with coastal flooding. It could be even more devastating than that. I'm not quite sure, and I don't know the facts of Katrina. All I know is, having watched those effects, watched a few short-term movies, and bought a recent movie that honors the memory of Louisiana before the storm hit with a live video feed that was taken in it's basically a short undercut budget film. Not sure if it was ever made in Hollywood, but it just depicts the realistic effects of what people felt like with Louisiana, and it's an honor of the people that have been affected by this storm. I myself, really send my heart and heartfelt compassion out to those who are going to be affected by this current storm, Hurricane Ida. So, just like I already know from the previous past administration and our current administration, yes, we're underneath Democratic President Biden and Kamala Harris. There is the past history of when these major storms have hit. We've had more of which there were Republicans who were in the White House, and where the aid and the financial support went at the times of these past affected storms. Not a good track history, especially with the current drama and disputed nonsense that's going on up with the White House and people disputing over the differences of what just happened over in Afghanistan and the withdrawal of the troops, and why we even got out of there and all that. Right now, I'm talking about people that are going to be affected here at home. There are soldiers and families that live at home. They live in Louisiana, in the surrounding areas, and even in neighboring states like Alabama, which are also going to be affected. So what pains me to say is that I live in a state, as I discussed in that 40-minute clip video, the one I posted yesterday. It's quite lengthy. If you want to watch that, you can watch it, but I'm trying to summarize here. I've been very fortunate to what I've experienced, and I'm trying to say that it is critical that Americans stand up and start doing for each other, if those who can, and support, and even those with greater wealth can do so and help each other. I'm trying to start my own channel to kind of represent and speak out for other Americans who maybe not so fortunate, and those who don't even have access to a phone, let alone that, Wi-Fi or cable, or even internet access. So as I put that down there with his live hurricane tracking thing going on right now, it's something I watch steadily because I can learn from somebody like him and from what those cameras show, and the people even that are so heartfelt in the comment section, raising awareness and staying there in support to watch what's going to happen. These hurricane trackers and the people that go out there and do this work, just like tornado chasers, they experience a lot of danger, a lot of very, very, very unsafe conditions, and they put themselves in harm's way most times to do what's good for the people who are in the worst of all situations, to embrace the difficulties of extremely high winds, extreme flooding, devastating and life-threatening flooding, including flash flooding, and that same comparison, along with lightning, and the dangers that brings, along with these, volatile and brutal winds and rainfalls that can hit. So all I'm going to point out is that while I'm sitting up here in Florida today, I'm not thinking about my state. I'm thinking about people in Louisiana, and I hope a lot of people out there are sharing the same. Send your love and support, and send your prayers. And anybody out there that can get this message and can share this and spread this, as they got the hurricane alerts going off like crazy, and the storm hasn't even hit yet. It's going to be hitting sometime around, I think, 2 p.m. this evening. I knew days before the storm even hit that it was going to be a major concern. What they were saying on the news, I didn't agree with 2 days ago, when they said, people down there in Louisiana should be expecting the worst case scenario of, plan for a category 2, even though the storm was predicted to get even a little bit higher. And they said, even in that logic sense, that what they really should have done was plan for a 3. But I knew that the storm was going to get more severe because of where it was headed. And like most people, common sense tells you it's going into the Gulf, but just in that particular area where that Gulf part was, as I've learned, there is that stream underneath of Louisiana where the water is the warmest, just directly below where all the shipping ports are and the oil rigs that are far out there, which are going to be affected by this too. Don't be complaining because gas prices take a spike. Think about the people's lives that are going to be affected. And yes, the oil companies do tend to, I think, make a bit of a seedy way of making money off of these types of disasters. But the main root of the issue is that we don't know if Biden himself is going to have enough financial aid and support, or he's dealing with all this debacle and drama over what's going on over there in Afghanistan, pulling the troops out, people's opinion of why he did. Well, yes, we're saving our soldiers. Yes, we left a lot of Americans behind. I'm not a fan of this. I don't think this was good. I think there could have been a lot of contingency hesitations on what plans could have been made to alter those things. But the main root of the concern is today, apart from where money and finances could go to helping Americans that need it, not every American has the funds to do that. We rely on the government to be there to back us up when we have disasters. And people like Mark, say this guy's name, his name, Mark Sudduth, he is an amazing guy who is out there spending his money and equipment from his supporters who send him money, which I've just started following probably, I think 2 years ago. And I've been in absolute awe at the amazing work and ethics that he puts in behind his life-threatening situations that he'll put himself into, just traveling and touring and visiting and tracking down these dangerous storms. So what I would definitely recommend is, if you can send money and aid and support, try to do it. If you can send calls to the governor and find out if there's a way to put pressure to have help and aid and assistance to help these people. Because I guarantee you, with a storm like that approaching, if there was any way that we could have not gotten into a mix of disputed drama and dispute over what was going on in Afghanistan, which we've been in for, almost 2 decades, if not more. It's like 16, I don't know if it was like exactly 20 years. Yeah, I think it was like 20 some years. Yeah. Whatever the case, all the money that we pumped into them, think about all the money we could have used to have helped in past storms in a war that we all know, separate from the wars that we're battling with the planet, just like with this situation with Hurricane Ida. Think about all the money that we've spent overseas, okay? And we haven't contributed toward helping our own citizens. I mean, I'm just making that as a point. It's two different discussions of topic as to why, and there are many different people on both sides of the aisle that would argue and dispute this, especially in Washington, D.C. That's why I myself, even though I said in my last video, said, well, I'm sure if anybody like myself or anybody else in my genre, Gen X myself, wanted to run for president, you got to think, like, it would be a good idea for people in my generation and even under me to start running for president. We need younger, smarter minds up there in the leadership in Washington. We have a bunch of old people that aren't doing enough. And when storms like this hit, they're up there debating, going back and forth, disputing, and I'm talking about on both sides of the aisle. Both parties, both ages, both age ranges, no matter what political position that they sit in, you don't see the outcome of a good future and people taking effect in the common everyday lives of Americans who need that kind of support, that leadership, that mental strength. There are a lot of people that are working underneath of the older people who run these, run these government offices, but to the degree of what I understand, it's not as if they're thinking about the future of what we're all going to be affected by. So, once again, send your support, send your love, and really think about those who are going to be affected by Hurricane Ida, just like myself, and pray for everybody in Louisiana and in Alabama, but mainly in the areas that are going to be affected the most, which is central to the under section of the foot by the seaport and the reservoirs of the swamp areas and surrounding water areas, which I can pull up and show you, which is going to be most affected, which is I don't know why I'm having trouble. Louisiana map. So the area that's going to be most affected is going to be right in here. Okay, this whole area right in here, this whole midsection, you can just kind of draw like a line from here to here. All this is going to be affected. Everything from cutting this directly in half, as if the foot and the tippy toes of Louisiana just got chopped right off. All this and everything over, even into Mississippi, all this, which isn't even shown on this descriptive point, they're going to be affected by this storm. And it's just devastating that we got to think about what's going to happen. So, for example, like, all of what's going to be chopped off in this storm is going to be like everything from here and everything here. All this, as the storm kind of cuts across and zigzags up and over like this. So it's kind of going up, straight up in, and that warm section of water is right here, where it's like a little Gulf current stream kind of just cutting in there. That's where the storm is being passed, even though that's a terrible description of it. You can literally get a better description just from Ida tracking, Ida hurricane. Yeah, they say that hurricane path, whatever the case. But I mean, the main gist of this, and what I'm mostly concerned about is how they say, oh, it can move anywhere right now. It could change as it enters in and it collapses in on inland. And I'm no hurricane expert or weather meteorologist, but as an American citizen and having lived over here in Florida, where I'm at, I live right over here in Melbourne. This is where my star is. That's where I'm at. Every storm that's come up through here has always kind of dove off here and swooped off. We've been so fortunate, so blessed, and swooped off here. And Port Louisiana has been getting hit nonstop. Our D.C. people, Washington, looks like the storm is going to pass directly just north of them. The eye wall, whatever little bit is left right there, as they like to call this in the 2016 election and even 2017, we got a swamp up here. Yeah, well, I'm afraid the swamps that are going to be really affected and hurt are the real swamps that are in here. These are the ones that matter. These are nature uh, preservations of wetlands and areas that are detrimentally important to the culture and the wildlife of Louisiana, all the animals here as well, which I fully say is going to be a hardship to face, to lose and sacrifice or harm any wildlife in here with all this coastal water. I mean, high tide, as I just pointed out, the Louisiana high tide schedule. Okay, Louisiana high tide is starting at 11:19 a.m. from today, which is already passed, and low tide will set in at 9:40. The storm is already set to have landfall here by 7 p.m., which means before 9 p.m. hits and low tide is in effect, it's going to be too late in terms of what difference that's really going to make for all this high tide water that's already high enough in to already land that sits well below sea level. And for anybody that's not aware of that, do your research on it. And like I said before, the best thing I can say is a shorter, sweeter version of this. It's just an awareness video with my face actually in the video, since my last one, I made the mistake of shrinking this window over here with my camera, and I only had my Elgato Live video recorder going on, which is hooked up into my PC computer, a gaming computer, which I've spent less time gaming and more time doing research and trying to do something more eventful and creative. Um, the kind of games that I ever thought about using this computer for, now I'm sitting here thinking, well, hey, why not make something more important that actually does some good for people? Instead of money that sometimes people spend, they focus on other things out there in the world. Think about the people that are suffering. And I myself know the comments that I've made even in my past video and even now by saying why I even brought up the topic of becoming president or having the power of that political figure to represent the entirety of the United States of America. You got to think about one thing. We as a country as a whole, we're already faced with some pretty scary things going on between the wildfires here, excessive heat affecting here in the Midwest, tornadoes consistently affecting in here. We have extreme cold that is an abnormal snap between the North Atlantic with the deep freeze that affected 2000, I think it was 2018, the weird spell. Yeah, 2018, the deep, I think it was called the Deep Freeze 2018. The weather from this was the North Pole, I don't want to say it was exactly the North Pole, but the North Pole vortex. Yeah, I think it was the North Vortex, the polar vortex. No, it was 2019. So I'm a little bit off there. 2019, and that was scary. Okay, so the oh gosh, the cold wave of 2019 and images of that. Yeah, that was 2019. Images in here. That's where you had like these scary like -55 and -27 and -25. That affected the entire upper northern part of the East Coast, which is detrimentally just scary. And that's just a weird spell. That's telling you one thing from my 40-minute video, which if you don't want to take the time to watch, I can summarize it here. A lot of people are saying that we have rising global warming temperatures, but really what it is the entire planet's entirety of its shift is affecting all throughout the entire world. And it's all due to you remove trees, you dry and irrigate land to the point where it becomes desolate and obsolete, and then the wind that comes through normally that moves along clouds that carry water and rainwater, they are moved and changed due to the increased heating and temperature that is affected from the surface of the land. So as the surface of that land is heat, as the sun bears down on that surface, that is pushed back up. The entirety of the upper atmosphere, as it's pushing wind through, that hot air is transported and traveled up, and that's going to interfere with the upper atmosphere. So everything that's heat from below, just like the stability of a house with how it's built, you're talking about changing the roof of our Earth and the stability of what we have up there. And you're talking about moving drastic amounts of air, which carries across through entire biomes and continents. And that's why we have these weird dust spells, like the Sahara Desert dust spells that are hit. And I know I'm not an expert on this, and everything I'm saying is just my own matter of opinion, but it's what I believe, honestly, that if we as Americans are going to have a better future, we've got to start stepping up and being there for our fellow Americans and stop turning against each other. Hate and discrimination and lacking concern and ignorance does not help the future of our country. We are solely now dependent on manufacturing companies and auto machine tech to survive and live, and to the point where we live in our everyday lives. Many of us, just like myself, can't even grow crops or plants or cultivation on the land that we live. So you want to talk about being free, you got to start fighting for what's right, standing up for the American people, and doing right for those around you. Okay, I send all my love to everybody, and I'm going to try to continue to bring positive and influential content to my channel until I can get more viewing, and hopefully that will boost up, and I can put that money to some good use. So thank you for watching, and I'm going to conclude that now. Take care. Bye bye.